Hello, my name is Mandi Rukuni. I'm the chairperson of ZIMCHE, and basically, this is my presentation for the Quality Assurance Capacity Building Workshop for University Councils and Board Chairs and Vice Chancellor to be held in Gweru, 7th of November 2025. So I thought I'll record this just in case I'm not able to make it physically to that workshop, but I do have quite a few things I'd like to cover, which I think are important to advise our community on the kinds of issues that have been preoccupying at least the council of the Zimbabwe Council for Higher Education, ZIMCHE. So my topic today is relevance as quality, rethinking roles and responsibilities of university councils. So, as I say, our CEO, Professor Drimbo, and our management do run the organization. They are the ones who would ordinarily or normally have the mandate to execute and implement the decisions that we make at council. So my talk today is more of a brainstorm. This is not policy. This is what we are concerned with as council, and for myself as chair, the issues we're discussing. Some of them actually we have kind of resolved, and those will be definitely communicated normally through our management. So the main message here is that universities must be an intellectual mirror, a microcosm, a representation of society, of Zimbabwean society, and more importantly, a pillar of hope in the future. This is what universities do. So university councils actually not only represent government, but actually represent society at large. So my presentation will be in 6 parts. I'll cover quickly the roles and responsibilities of university councils. I'll touch on the underrated quality issues that I don't think we are really yet addressing fully for our degree programs. I'll discuss issue of the doctorates, both the taught Doctor of Philosophy degrees as well as honorary degrees. I will touch on quality assessment issues in a bit more depth for further kind of contribution towards the day's work. I'll then discuss issue of what kind of evidence, what's the burden of proof that we think ought to be considered in quality assessment. And then finally, what are some of the strategic issues that are coming through from our own community as institutions of higher learning, as well as from society at large. So in terms of the roles and responsibilities of university councils, I think that university councils are the highest governing bodies in higher education institutions. These are body corporates with full responsibility for the universities that you guide. You ensure strategic direction, accountability, and quality in all the 5 areas, from teaching, community service, research, and so on. So your leadership directly impacts the provision of quality education for Zimbabweans. So if I were to just go through these roles and responsibilities one by one, I would say governance and policy formulation is at the top. You provide strategy and you deal with compliance issues at large. Number 2 is your oversight role on academic quality and overall performance of your university. Number three, you provide leadership, especially for your own administration. You actually also select and appoint the designated positions. That is the vice chancellors, the pro vice chancellors, the registrar, BESA, the librarian, and the director of ICT in your universities. Those are designated positions who sign contracts with the council. You deal with staff performance issues. Number four, your fiduciary responsibility is critical. Not only starts with allocation of resources, but also ensuring that there is accountability throughout. Number five, human resources development. The whole works from recruitment to promotion policies for all staff. Number six, quality assurance and accreditation. You establish internal quality assurance systems for your university. So let me then turn to the issues which are not so well addressed in my opinion, in our opinion for now. These are what I would say issues that are either underrated or not sufficiently covered in our quality assurance systems. The 17 standards as they are, that's a lot, but still some of these things fall through the cracks. Now, the three that I will cover for now is the relevance of the degree programs, and then the deficiency we still feel in providing really what you might call clear proficiency competencies as performance skills in our students and eventually graduates. And finally, the inculcation of critical thinking skills in our students. We probably still push the regurgitation of knowledge. We believe that the bulk of teaching and learning should be in critical thinking skills because the body of knowledge grows and is easily accessible for people with really good critical thinking skills. So let me delve into the relevance of our academic programs. It's an open secret that we're not doing a good job teaching students to analyze our own societal issues and challenges. Our graduates are actually top class when it comes to being suitable for jobs in already industrialized countries abroad, whilst less capable of solving problems here at home. There's very limited focus on our own society. We don't see any depth of research or teaching or understanding of our own family systems, which are, by the way, just decaying on a daily basis. Our communities are crumbling. Our industrial priorities are not dealt with in the educational systems. We don't know even enough about what's happening in our own hometowns where our universities are housed, never mind the broader community and nation at large. As I say, when we take our students, our graduates, go overseas, abroad, they perform well. They are performing in the top 5 to 10% actually, but they're not performing at home. So the point is, we are still overly reliant on giving them knowledge that's applicable overseas rather than knowledge that's applicable locally. I'll come back to that later because we are using the wrong materials and the wrong teaching methods. So let me go through all these kind of underrated issues by tackling heritage-based education 5.0 in its different components, starting with teaching and learning, then research, community service, innovation, and industrialization. Let me start with teaching and learning. We really have to equip students with critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. They need to understand what innovation is as a skill, entrepreneurship, doing things that others are not doing, figuring things out that others haven't figured out. This is the fourth Chimurenga people, Chimurenga Chefungwa. Our curriculum design is out of date, in my opinion. I want to see a Sankofa based curriculum design which says within each subject matter, the heritage part is the beginning. What it doesn't matter whether we are talking about pharmacology, any issues in health, any issues in engineering, any issues in agriculture, any issues in family, community, social issues, heritage issues. What our modules should cover is this is the past, this is the present, and this is the future. The past, present, future must be pregnant with knowledge and information in our coursework. There is no really advanced civilization by people who have no clue where they were 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. If you go to the Chinese or the Americans or the French, they know where they were 5,000 years ago, what their society was like and how it performed all the way up to today. I feel very strongly that our curriculum thinks that our past starts when we were colonized. No, please. Let's see seriously well conceptualized modules by our own academics, which cover in each subject matter the past, the present, and the future. We need to see more issues based learning, problem based learning, opportunities based learning should be the majority of the time we are spending with our students. As I say, and I'll touch on it later, teaching is a primary responsibility at universities. That's the starting point even for the promotion process. So why promote somebody from a lecturer to a senior lecturer without any understanding at all of advanced knowledge from the past? If somebody is not able to write a module they use for teaching, which is grounded in our heritage, then the present and the future, we can learn from all other societies. In fact, advanced civilizations copy from other civilizations, but they convert everything through the filter of local knowledge and wisdom instead of just copy and paste, which is what we are still doing here. So, as I say, I'll come back to that later. Let's go on to that's the kind of critical thinking skills that here I'm just listing them for you just to whet your appetite. I mean, we need to teach our students how to formulate questions, how to define problems and their causality, how to gather the right evidence, and how to evaluate evidence, logical reasoning. And if you're reasoning with others, we need to be able to understand how to argue logically, rational disputation instead of just quarreling and disagreeing. How do you develop a hypothesis? How do you understand different forms of data and how do they come into the knowledge process? Comparison and synthesis, perspective taking, because most issues can be analyzed at a minimum of 5 levels. And at each level, a different answer comes through. So when people are arguing at one level, fine. But often people are arguing over 2 or 3 levels and are not aware. And obviously, you're going to argue forever because life is such that there are the level of analysis, the different, the interpretation, intervention, and level of perspective. So decision making, especially under uncertainty, because that's what life is about. Life is created so that some things are certain, some are not certain. Okay. Argumentation and communication, ethical reasoning. These are all areas of critical thinking that our students need to be really fully grounded in. Let me go on to number 3, which is research. So I'm talking about really addressing societal challenges and opportunities. So we need, even before university, early childhood education all the way to primary, secondary, we now have to teach everyone at every level how to examine all phenomena around them, because they're still going to observe things and question, how to challenge and question, especially holy cows, things that you're told you cannot question. Those are the ones that scholars question. That is what has created civilization up to what it is today. Things that you're not allowed to question is because there are no good answers yet. So you don't want to create problems. By questioning too much, you just go with what you're told. That's fine until it's possible to question them. And then you have new knowledge and new civilization unfolds. Okay. How do we work individually and collectively in research across disciplines? So all those are skills that are needed in research. A lot of people can work in their own discipline, put them together with another discipline. They can't communicate, they can't talk. And yet life is not in one discipline. Most people, all of us actually live our lives across all the disciplines. So for universities, when I look at universities and I see the kind of PhD programs that are coming through, the kind of research programs, it's all well and good, but it's very limited spread in the types of research and the approaches and the applications. And I would want, within our quality assurance, to acknowledge that there is a plethora of different types of research and approaches to research, which all have to be seen as surfacing in each of our universities, from basic or fundamental research, strategic research, applied research, adaptive research, problem-solving research, disciplinary research, subject matter research. All these are appropriate for different aspects of our societal development. Then I go to community service. Yeah, I mean, this is where the public has always been right, in that our universities cannot continue to be ivory towers that are disconnected from societal realities. So for our academics today, heritage-based education 5.0 is God-given. This is an open check to say, now you don't have to hide behind the ivory tower. You can go out and be part of the community. We must have practical significance to our families, communities, and institutions and towns that we're located in. This is the communities who brought us into life. They have served us up to today, and they brought us up. We owe them a in-depth understanding of these communities and helping them come up with solutions and take advantage of the opportunities out there. The ministry also has adopted a policy that every institution of higher and tertiary education should adopt a community. We must enforce that in our quality assurance. We must check. And the community is either a physical community of, or it is actually an industry, or it can be defined in many ways, but adopt a community. Let's ensure universities are doing that. One important role of universities is serving the communities there in through expert knowledge, sitting on boards, consulting. Vocational training is big, continuous education or continuing education programs and so on. So every university, in my opinion, should have at least 2 or more of the following kinds of what you might call serious engagement and support to community. Each university should have a continuing education program where people access vocational training courses, short courses across every aspect, from home improvement to servicing your car, to whatever. I mean, university must be a place where everybody goes to learn how to play the mbira, or the guitar, learn how to swim, whatever it is. Universities have to provide that kind of relationship with the community that you are in. And each university should have at least a museum or a gallery that is a reflection of where we've come from in that small town or in that community, and also help communities out there set up their own small galleries and museums as part of the entire heritage program. We cannot watch as our heritage is obliterated in front of our eyes. If we don't respect our heritage, if we don't protect it fearlessly and fiercely, newcomers and foreigners don't have an obligation to do so. They will obliterate it in front of our own eyes, but they won't allow us to do it in their own countries. So let's have more of those community engaged activities so that as our senior lecturer, associate professors, but it's time somebody's an associate professor in a small town, the community should feel that professor, that they should know the impact that person has on society, not just the number of publications that are listed somewhere. Innovation. So, I'd like to say this to our councils and vice chancellors and pro vice chancellors who are hired to promote innovation. Inventions are not necessarily innovations, okay? Innovation is only when your invention is now socially and economically successful, is now widely available out there. Now it's an innovation. It's solving a problem. It's serving a broader purpose in life. Otherwise, it's just a nice invention seated in your innovation hubs. So your innovation hubs, which is a brilliant idea, by the way, brilliant idea, innovation hubs, but you're still running them like they're invention hubs where nice products are developed and the world doesn't even know about them. Okay. So until your innovation hub becomes inundated by visits and requests from the public, from the proto industries, those who manufacture without factories, and those industries in your town and nationally, then you still have a long way to go. So I want you to also know that at the end of the day, innovation is just solving a problem so that a product or service becomes successful. And technical innovation on its own won't do it. You also need institutional and social innovations to reduce the market gaps and other challenges that make it difficult for good technical innovations to become broadly successful. So don't make any mistake. Most innovations require collaboration. They need partnerships. You are tackling different challenges to get this product out there successfully from different angles. So innovation is not scientific work behind in the labs and hubs. Open this thing up. And finally, industrialization. So the important point here is the definition, because industrialization is social transformation. Industrialization is a process. It's not a technical process. It's a social process. Manufacturing, yes, that's the technical process. Manufacturing, yes, is a key part of industrialization. But industrialization at large is really reorganization of society at all levels, from individual to family level to community to national level. Reorganization of society driven by the desire for greater productivity, greater efficiency, greater effectiveness. When we say, oh, this one is industrious, it means better organized, work hard, produce more efficiently, better quality. Okay. So at the end of the day, industrialization applies both to technical and non-technical products and services. Industrialization is massification of any solution, whether it's embodied in a gadget or it's disembodied. It's an idea that is brilliant in solving our many challenges with our take our legal and judicial system. 80% of what cases are tried in the community courts. There are so many possible innovations there that could make our society just function much more effectively if our judiciary just understood that a lot of the laws need to be adjusted for the reality that we have multiple forms of law clashing at community level, and the chiefs and others who are trying to solve these issues are really struggling. We need solutions technically, socially, at all levels. And when an idea is good, industrialization means it's now taken to broader adoption. So, what evidence do we need across all these areas? And what comes to mind here is right across the board, whether it's evidence as to whether heritage based education 5.0 is effectively being implemented, is a brilliant formula. Are we implementing it properly? Are we promoting our staff using the right criteria? So I would say most of the evidence seems to be hipped on the peer review processes. It's academics reviewing other academics. I have no problem with that because that's what we do as academics. My challenge is with heritage based education 5.0, we need much more stakeholder review, whether it's our curriculum, whether it's the way we actually, the methods we're using for teaching, whether it's the capacities and competencies of our graduates when they go out there, they have to be reviewed by stakeholders, starting all the way back to the community and families where these graduates come through. We need to hear parents say, oh my goodness, the moment our daughter or son registered at Midland State University or NAST or GZU or UZ, wow, just them, even after the first semester coming home, they are so useful to our family here and community. They are doing things which they were not doing before, even before they finished their first year at university. We need to hear what the communities feel, what the industry where these graduates are taking their internships, in terms of the final product as well. So, one of the things that I always marvel at graduation ceremonies is the very last ritual by each vice chancellor is getting all the new graduates to stand up and recite their alumni charter. But as far as I can see, that's where it all ends. I've not seen any serious follow through by any university of alumni. And with the level of ICT we have in social media, I think if there's the most important asset in the balance sheet of any university is the alumni if we're using them properly. We should be in touch with them on a daily basis. We should know what they're doing. They should give us feedback on almost everything from the education they got, from how we could improve, how they could support us, how they could help us, and more importantly, how they could help to strengthen our capacity to deliver education. And I'm sorry, but this, I'm just saying this because I've said it before in public. I don't think anybody should be promoted to senior lecturer if they're still using a textbook from abroad to teach their course. If you're still using a textbook written by Mr. Brown somewhere in the world, well, you should remain a lecturer, or you should even not be a lecturer. We should just promote our staff to senior lecturer because they have translated global knowledge and local knowledge into a coherent form of new material that students can enjoy, past, present, future. You know, without that, please don't promote that individual into a senior lecturer. They can go and get promotion somewhere else where they are copying and pasting somebody else's textbooks. So, overall, I now go to the entire aspect of quality assurance. And I know that at ZIMCHE, our role as regulators, I'm very happy as chairman with the work done by our management. And needless to say that, you know, with very limited resources, both in terms of staff, equipment, and so on, it's my assessment, and it's just my personal assessment from my experience. ZIMCHE resources right now and capacity is still based on uh, a nation with 4 universities. Now we got 20 something. And I know that, and I've said that I have no problem in the way that uh, government has invested in the universities. I think that was the right order of things. Over the last few years, a lot of resources have gone into our universities, building new infrastructure, labs, innovation hubs, name it, brilliant. I think that was the right thing to do. Now the time has come to turn to actually support ZIMCHE to be able to really be able to not just monitor but also regulate 20 some universities. And in no time at all, it will be 30, I'm sure. So the 17 quality standards, we have looked at them at the board. And I basically said 17, fine, you could have 100, doesn't bother me. What bothers me is they are not categorized. So it becomes difficult to know to what the decision tree is, what the decision criteria is. It's all over the place. So, so I'm proposing to simplify the categorization into 5 or similar. So this is just an example. I took the 17 and just cobbled them up into 5. Um, and category A would be academic leadership, governance, and strategy. Category B is academic programs, teaching, learning, standards. Category C would be research, innovation, and heritage integration. How far we're integrating heritage in our curriculum. And that's an example there of a decision criteria. If the curriculum and the teaching materials don't integrate enough of our own heritage knowledge, well, it shouldn't pass. Simple. Category D, human resources, student support and learning resources. And then finally, E, finance, partnerships, monitoring, and continuous improvement. So we need a much more refined scoring model, decision tree. We need the non-negotiables under each category. If these are not at a pass level in this category, then the university in question cannot proceed. That's the level of rigor and tough decisions we have to make now. Otherwise, what happens is universities slide back, and then their product is noticeably poor in the public, but we are not able to stop them. And as chairman of ZIMCHE, I'm saying, too bad. I now want solidly strong decision tree, solidly clear non-negotiables. They come to our board through our staff. We say, if that's a fail, stop them. Okay, so we need much more solid decision criteria. Let me move on to doctorates, professorships, and vice chancellorships, because these are topical issues now in society at large, which is good. When society at large discusses these issues, that is a new level of sophistication and maturity of society. When they discuss these issues openly and question and challenge these issues, it means they are ready to go to the next level. So let me take these one at a time and tell you where we are and what I think. Let's start with the doctorates. And I'll start with the Doctor of Philosophy training. This is where the doctorate is given in class. And I know that we've discussed this at council. I know that our management is coming up with a clearly defined policy statement. So I'm just throwing this for discussion here, because a Doctor of Philosophy training program, there are some basic things I want to say that I actually have discussed some of these with Professor Tagwira, the PS of the ministry, and some other people, just to say, simplify what it means for the public. So, for a doctor of philosophy degree, the most important thing, in my opinion, is that it must be an open process. So, even at proposal development stage, if a student submits a proposal, okay, initially it's sent over to a potential supervisor, but sooner or later it's open in the whole department. By the time the student is required to make a presentation of their proposal or draft proposal to start with, we should see more of their peers coming through, eventually even from other departments in the university, and ultimately even from the public. People in the public, the peers, they, they should be able to participate and also offer and get to understand what it is that these aspiring doctors are researching into and make contributions. By the time a student is submitting their thesis, they would probably have presented several times in open public space. People know this is a real PhD student. They can see the growth, they can feel the authenticity. The challenge is when students are allocated to supervisor, it's privatized. You don't know. Then one day you just see somebody being awarded a degree. I think vice chancellors, please avoid that. Make every student, it doesn't matter who it is, because, and don't, make no mistake, even high profile individuals, and I've supervised high profile individuals myself in my past life, not just in Zimbabwe, everywhere in South Africa, US, and so on. High profile students would love to if they're serious, to have public scrutiny. The others question them. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. But those who want a quick and dirty one so that they just get a degree, that's where the problem is. So let me go to honorary doctorates. That's straightforward. I'm sure Professor Drimbo will cover that during the course of the day. It's very straightforward. Honorary doctorates, when they're offered, they are just for that specific university is just offering an honor. The title cannot be used publicly. You cannot put it on your CV or your business card. You can use the title within the university. There are slightly different conventions throughout the country, but the long and the short is they are very restricted in their use. The challenge is not just Zimbabwe, in the whole world. Not every African country I know of is a problem. It's a problem in the United States, in the US, Europe, because titles, our society has become social media, conscious. So it's happening in every field of life. It's not just in academia where people want to get away with a doctorate when they are not really that level, or professor title when they are really not that level. It's happening everywhere. People want to be engineers, they want to be CEOs, prophetess, pastor, name it. It's a bit of a cancer throughout society, because then when you get that title, you use it to leverage other things. So let me leave the honorary doctorates. Professor Drimbo will do a thorough job. The professorship, for me, I've already touched on elements, because once again, a professor means you're an authority in your subject. To be an authority in your subject, it means society can feel your work. It means that your work is not just impacting on other peers in your field, it is being felt in society. And your knowledge is you're such an authority that you simplify knowledge. You're now able to make complicated issues simple, even for the public. So, yeah, I do have a bit of concern that people are just being promoted to professor because they have published so many articles. I mean, okay, you've published 38 articles, so what? It doesn't make you an authority necessarily, because it could be just a series of publications without any serious coherence of what you might call power and authority that makes a difference in the field. So let's see professors' work also felt in the community. If you're a professor in a small town like Chinoy or Mashingo, the community should really know and have impact of your work, because you're also doing vocational training. You're publishing other things besides just articles in refereed journals. You're giving public talks, public lectures, and so on and so forth. Finally, the vice chancellorship. And I include the pro vice chancellors in this category because, once again, because of heritage based education 5.0, it becomes extremely important. The desire, okay, it's not easy to get people with full qualifications across the 5 areas, but for the purposes of attracting the right people, I would still want to propose the application of policy as it is. But the policy basically says, so if you're going to be promoted to a full professor and therefore eventually a potential vice chancellor, you have to be satisfactory in all the 5 areas. You've got to be satisfactory in teaching, at least satisfactory in research, satisfactory in community service, innovation, industrialization. Then, on top of that, you have to be outstanding, at least in all of them, if you're going to be vice chancellor, or at least in 3 of them. This is where discretion may come in, but let's start off by saying, if you're going to be vice chancellor, it means you're not just an outstanding authority in academic discipline. You're also an accomplished administrator in managing people in the knowledge industry. So a vice chancellor is accomplished both as an academic as well as an administrator. That has to be a requirement. We can't have pro vice chancellors who are pro vice chancellors are vice chancellors in waiting. So they really have to be strong in both the academics and administration. And therefore have to be satisfactory in all the areas, because you're going to be supervising. You're going to be supervising pro vice chancellors, deans, in all those 5 areas. So that would be my general recommendation, that we should advertise these positions and look for advertising for a professor. It has to be somebody. Ideally, we say normally, usually we can't meet all the requirements, but we have to say normally they are an accomplished academic and an accomplished administrator. And they're not only satisfactory in all the 5 areas, but also outstanding in almost all of them. And pro vice chancellors, these are people just working in the vice chancellor's office. They cannot be too specialized, in my opinion. They have to be able to do everything that the vice chancellor can do and be assigned or reassigned. But at the end of the day, also, the tradition is that when people get promoted to pro vice chancellor, it should not be automatic that they become vice chancellor in that university. In fact, if wishes were horses, I would regulate that. If one is promoted to pro vice chancellor in a university, it means they cannot be vice chancellor in that university. They should accomplish themselves there so that they are headhunted by other universities, for heaven's sake. Otherwise, there's always positioning and jostling to take over. Let me shift to the other strategic issues, and I want to start with what I believe the highest level one. And that is to just state that education is the DNA of society, okay? Meaning education has to obtain the instructions needed for our civilization to develop itself, to survive, to reproduce and excel. If education does not do that in all aspects of our civilization, then we're in trouble. So we need to see more foresight studies. And foresight only comes from hindsight, Sankofa. The further back we can look, the further forward we can see. If we can only look back 200 years to when we were colonized, we can only see 200 years at the most, maybe even 50 at max. So education as DA is the tool for advancement of our society. It's a tool to examine the entire national workforce and say, okay, so in 10 years' time, if we are more industrialized, more urbanized, what should our workforce look like? How do we reconfigure the entire system? I mean, ZIMCHE and universities should be doing these kinds of analysis. Okay. On governance and policy formulation, I think I've talked enough about that. And as I say, if higher education really is DNA of society and is a microcosm, a representation of society, it must deal with the entire aspect of society. Higher education, universities must worry about education from parenting stage to early childhood development, adolescence, to the entire primary, secondary, higher education to university. We have to research and understand this entire system and how it's impacting our society. We are not doing that. I come to language. Just as much as I've said, a society that's not able to look far back where it came from cannot see that far in front where it's going, the same thing applies to language. If we cannot translate up other people's knowledge into our own language, we'll forever be colonially enslaved. So I don't mind starting with simple practical things like code switching, making it possible in classrooms to use more than one language at a time, as long as people in that class are all able to communicate. For instance, Shona English, Debele, crosscut. It's a long-term thing, so maybe in another 50 years it will now be possible to really be able to translate a lot of knowledge in local languages. Artificial insemination, actually, is artificial intelligence, is the big thing for today. And I've always said in the past, artificial intelligence is a useful tool. Artificial intelligence is not intelligent, especially if we teach our students critical thinking skills. Whatever artificial intelligence produces is something that is already been put together by other people as knowledge and available to the internet. So it's less important to stop our students using AI. It's more important to teach them how to critically question and further deepen their interrogation of any answers that come from artificial intelligence. Then I've got this issue of overemphasis on economic capital at the expense of social capital and environmental capital. For simplicity, those are the three categories that I would put all our societal civilization into: our economic capital, our social wealth, our environmental health. And I always want to remind us that environmental capital is the mother of all other capital. It's the most important, and it is the least regarded, is the least emphasized. Social capital is the next most important, because we create our social institutions around the environment. How we have created the family system, what we eat, how we build our houses, etc., where we fetch our water. It's all built around environmental systems. So social capital then we uses environmental capital to create new wealth, economic capital. So it looks like economic capital is the most important capital, but it's the least important, because the long-term capital is what we are paying less attention to: our social social sustainability or social resilience, the ability of individual family systems, community systems to be resilient against any odds. So I would want to propose that our education system recognizes that. Otherwise, the consequences are, as I said, decaying family systems, decaying community systems. Our environment is going to the dogs, and reducing our biodiversity, whilst those in industrialized nations just cannot believe there's so many resources here, and it is unfortunate when we allow them to destroy the real wealth that we have. So, towards the end here, I'll just quickly touch on some of the contemporary issues that I keep hearing and discussing, even in our own council. Um, I keep hearing not only from policymakers but from the public universities. It has to be a developmental university. I like to spend more time discussing this, and university councils should spend more time discussing this. I think university councils are more suited for this, because if university councils can spend more time studying what the academics are discussing, especially at Senate. I know that Senate has the final say in academic issues, but council still has to be able to know what it is they're discussing and see how far they're going in addressing the real societal issues. And I think that balance is very important. I don't know the extent to which our Senate in our universities really have internalized heritage-based education 5.0, and how they've internalized societal issues and translate them into teaching research, community service, innovation, and industrialization. I don't know. Secondly, most of our universities are in small towns. Well, turn them into university towns, turn them into towns that are admirable, because the university is not just embedded in the town, but the town is thriving. It's learning so much. It is enjoying the benefits of having leading intellectuals and scholars in their midst. Then finally, I've already pointed out that the ministry has said to universities and other institutions of higher learning, adopt communities. And I think I've talked about that enough. I think our universities are not pulling the coherence of their research, innovation, community service agenda, and mastering specific industries. I would like to see different universities mastering one or two, three universities. And it starts by curiosity, just wanting to know what's happening in our pharmaceutical industry and studying it to death. And we know everything about it, not just in Zimbabwe, but elsewhere. What's happening in our food industries, what's happening in our transportation industries, our hospitality industries, health, name it. Our universities should have scholars who know in depth more than anyone else about these industries. After all, we're being paid to think. People, I think we have the easiest jobs of all the people in our society. We are paid to think. So when we start thinking better than others, it's not because we are smarter than the people out there. There are many, many smarter than us, but we just specializing in thinking. Let's do the best. Let's give back to our society. The skill that most have no time to apply is not because they are not capable, but they are just too busy doing other work to make our lives comfortable. I've given already the example of the legal and judicial system here, which is discombobulated by its multiplicity of different legal systems, but the African one is not incorporated in teaching or learning or the judicial process. So in conclusion, I would say to our council chairpersons here, our vice chancellors, please, university councils, you are the key custodians of the quality of education. And through your competence as councils, through effective oversight, you ensure that our universities remain relevant. And I should repeat, never mind all the other quality assurance aspect. Relevance to me is number one. If by the end of this workshop, we don't come back to ZIMCHE Council with some evidence that now we really focusing on relevance of our academic programs to our society, I'm sorry, I think we will be engaging you as universities much more aggressively. We want relevant programs which are impactful. We want competitive students. We want learning that is student centered so that they can have the skills to go out there and do well, whatever situation. Either they're back home in their family and community or they get a top level job somewhere else, they should still excel. So, universities really have to transform into hands on developmental entities, fearless and forceful in addressing Zimbabwe and Africa's contemporary issues. So, uh, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Mazrita Siwangile. Asante sana. Thank you. Bye.